when you do this, when you open yourself to those possibilities, that's when opportunities become available.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Wake Up, Get Better podcast. So if you're watching this, you can see that I'm holding a little lapel mic like one of those influencers who holds lapel mics in their videos. But the reason I'm doing that is because my recording equipment is in another place, and usually I have my mic and everything here, but sometimes I have this lapel mic for other things. But anyway, I wanted to record an intro to this interview with Matt Wahlstrom. So Matt is the owner of Epic Roll BJJ, so you can get all kinds of Jiu Jitsu gear there. But he's also just an entrepreneur. You know, him and his wife have a real estate company. They have had restaurants, and there was a restaurant in Nashville, which we'll get into in a second. And he is also starting a bottle company that is like a fitness bottle, shaker bottle, that we'll talk about a little bit towards the end. But really, what we get into with this episode is more around the concept of what it, like how to create and manufacture a successful mindset. And Matt had some really interesting things to say that I really agree with. We talked a lot about attracting things to you and how that happens, and how it's not like how people normally think about it. And so it was just an all-around really great interview. I'm really grateful for the time to chat with Matt. So I don't want to extend this anymore. Let's just get right into the interview. Here's my interview with Matt Wahlstrom from Epic Roll BJJ. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Wake Up, Get Better podcast. My name is Chris Creed. I'm talking with Matt Wahlstrom today. I am so stoked. Matt, thanks for reaching out for this. This is going to be super fun. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great, brother. I'm still alive, can't complain.
That's good. So where in the world are you again? Are you currently in snowpocalypse, or have you
we had a little snow. I'm like 40 minutes west of DC in Northern Virginia.
Okay.
So not too exciting of a place, but yeah, it's been all right. I was born and raised in Southern California, and grew up there, and then have been here for an extended period of time, and hopefully going to be in Florida at some point in the next couple of years. That's kind of the goal. You know what I mean?
Good. Yeah, 100%. That way, you don't have to deal with the snow anymore. I bring it up because I'm in Colorado. We've been trashed with snow for a couple, like maybe 4 or 5 days now, in like sub-zero temps. But I just moved from Nashville, and they're like experiencing a tragedy there because it's actually snowed.
I was in Nashville. I lived in Nashville.
Oh, did you really? For how long?
I lived in Mount Juliet.
Okay, nice.
And I was so we went and opened up a restaurant there. So right on 2nd Avenue, off of Broadway, there was a 100-year-old building that was there, and one of our family friends who owned a big construction company, they actually did all of the exterior work to the building of the Music City Center.
Okay, cool.
All that copper and glass.
So good.
On that, they did all that. And so he called me and he's like, "Hey, we knew each other from doing off-road racing, because we all raced in like the Baja 500 and 1000 down in Mexico." And so he was like, "Hey, there's this building available. What do you think about doing like a restaurant concept?" So I flew out there, and anyway, we bought the building and spent a year renovating it. So we did a VRBO on the top level, a full music venue on the second level, and then a quick service Mexican restaurant that was called Nashville Street Tacos on the bottom level. And so we had that, ran that for a while, and then opened up another place down like on 2nd Avenue, a couple of spots down, and then Mike's Ice Cream. If you remember, Mike's Ice Cream was out on the on Broadway, so they lost their lease, or something happened with their lease. So they approached us and they ended up buying our building. So where Mike's Ice Cream is now in Nashville, on 2nd Avenue, is actually where our restaurant Nashville Street Tacos used to be.
That's wild. I don't remember Nashville Street Tacos, but I must have passed it at some point. What around what time was it there?
So I came back to Virginia in 2015. So, and we were there for like 3 years, 2 years before that. So 12, 13, 14 in that timeline.
Yeah, that's what we moved right after the big flood. So that was 2010, and lived there until 2020. So
Okay.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so we would have been there around the same time. So that's cool, man.
Yeah, it's a
So
cool place, man. It's crazy how
yeah,
much is blown up now. Like just in that period of time that I have
yes,
buddies that are still there and restaurateurs that are still there. And man, I went through and I was like, wow, it's crazy how much has been built up. I felt like I got like a glimpse of Nashville, like in its sort of golden era. Where it just wasn't. I mean, it was crazy, but it wasn't like overly grown with like all these buildings and all this insanity. It just almost looks
yeah,
like a little bit of a different place now.
yeah. It's all buildings and bridesmaids now. That's all it is, man.
Exactly, exactly.
Oh, it's so good. No, it's such a cool town, and like we really enjoyed being there. And really, I mean, it's just like from the like a creativity hotspot. Like you go there and you can feel like the creative energy, right? That was one of the reasons that we moved there, because we had a photography business during that time, and all of our weddings were happening down there anyway. So we just moved down to that area. But it's such a cool town, but it has definitely changed a lot. That's cool. I didn't know that you lived there. I saw that you had done some work there and done the restaurant thing there,
Yeah.
but I didn't know how long you stayed. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah, it was very fun. It's a very, like when you try to have a family and you have kids, and we were like one of the only late night food options for a while, because what we saw was that it'd get late in Nashville and you had like hot dog carts on the corner and just not a lot of
Yep.
like good food. So imagine, you know, from scratch quick service like street tacos and queso and chips and everything, so people were losing their minds coming in hammered after like partying all night and just wanting food. So it was like managing a bunch of drunk people. That was a challenge. And then I we had the VRBO upstairs, so you actually had a private elevator that we had that went from, you could walk into the restaurant, take the private elevator all the way up to the VRBO. It could hold
Yeah.
about 12 people. And so we'd have people cycling in and out. And imagine for them, it's great because they could go down one level and be right there in live music. So we always had live music. We had
Yeah.
like the instruments and everything set up so that we could also just go and jam anytime we want. So we'd go hop on
Yeah.
drums, guitar, just be playing for everybody and having a good time. And
Hell yeah.
we had a little secret thing. The coolest thing about this restaurant is we had a little secret room that nobody knew about, but in the ceiling it was all like exposed kind of ceiling, and we had painted it all black. Well, there was a spot on the corner of one of the walls where if you took a broomstick and reached it up, there was a button up there, and you could push it on this button, and a staircase would actually come out of the ceiling. And no, we didn't tell renters or anybody about this. This was just for us. You'd take that and go up to the roof, and up on the roof we had a hot tub, a bar, a whole setup on the roof. So
Dude.
the year that I forget what year it was, maybe 2014 or something, Nashville had one of the largest fireworks shows in the country behind like New York, and it was right at
Yeah.
Titan Stadium, and we just sat up on the roof and watched the fireworks. I mean, it was like pieces of it coming down on top of us because we were so close. It was
Right on the water.
amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's
so
incredible.
some great memories there, man. Just such a good time, such a cool town, and just like a vibe
Yeah.
there for sure.
Oh, 100%, man. That's so cool, dude. So have you so real estate must be a big part of your how long have you been doing into that? Like when did you transition into that game?
So that was about when I came back from Nashville. It was something I always wanted to dabble in and get into, but it's hard to break into real estate because without certain things, because you're not getting paid, every week. You have to build up your business. It's like a lot to do it. So I really got into real estate because I love the investing side of it. We did flip some homes, and I really like that whole. I like how you can make money in so many different avenues through real estate. So it was intriguing to me, and I had been in this corporate life for so long prior to that, being in the fitness industry for years. I kind of working my way up from a trainer to a VP of a chain of health clubs and consulting for health clubs around the country, and I saw sort of the whole spectrum of that, and was in a position where I was making amazing money, and then all of a sudden, hey, the company's selling. And so what do you do as a non-owner? You're out. Like, that's a wrap.
Yeah.
And so I think it was interesting because as I was pursuing these careers and these sort of vertical moves that I was trying to take, I I had a lot of pushback from sort of, some family members of my father-in-law and people that are sort of on that old school mindset and mentality that you go and you work with the gas company for 50 years and then you retire, and it's just like not that world anymore. And when people talk about job security, it's kind of a funny thing, because I thought I had job security. I thought I was working with a company. I was making them millions of dollars. I was getting paid a lot, and everything was great. And all of a sudden, poof, it's gone. So I decided at that point, I need to invest in myself and in businesses that I can be in control of. That if I work very hard, I don't have to worry that I'm all of a sudden just going to get kicked to the curb one day. Like I'm not going to be punished for hitting my goals. And so I got into real estate when we moved back, and we've been doing it over about 10 years, actually a little bit more now. And my wife and I have our real estate team, kind of do it together, and it's amazing.
That's awesome. So you guys are selling homes like to consumers too, right? Like it's not just private. Yeah.
No, so we mostly, like, biggest part of our business is residential. So we do. I'm licensed in DC, Virginia, and Maryland. So I work in those areas.
Okay.
In this area, we have a lot of government employees, government customers that come in, and clients. And so having the ability to have all those areas, I mean, you could have somebody that comes in working in Washington and they could live in Virginia, Maryland, or DC and still be right in that little pocket. So it kind of made sense to be able to, serve our customers in those areas. And yeah, my wife does a lot of the back end work, a lot of the paperwork stuff. She lets me handle all the fun stuff, the negotiating and getting clients and dealing with people. So it's a yin and yang thing we have going on, and we've been doing it for a while. And so, yeah, super cool.
Yeah. And you have other businesses too. Like, so obviously we connected through Epic Roll. And I think maybe I probably came across you guys before I was listening to Jiu Jitsu. So we haven't actually talked about this, but I started my Jiu Jitsu journey in January of last year. So I'm just at a year.
Oh, wow.
Which is crazy. Yeah. So brand new, man. But it immediately when I went in, this is what I tell everybody, immediately when I went in, I was like, well, I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life, And it started because I wanted my son to get in.
Yep.
And I didn't want to be doing for me to be telling him to, or asking him to do something that I wasn't doing. So I was like, well, I'll go in. And then I was like, I kind of only want to do this. Right. So you started Epic Roll, and you have other businesses too. So I want to get into Epic Roll, but I want to hear about this first, because you were talking about investing in yourself and investing in businesses. Like, that's such a cool picture to see that I think some people maybe don't connect, is like, whoa, I was working really hard in this business and now it's gone. And the owner gets to take the money out of that business and then go back and put it in another business. And so you had this epiphany of like, now I'm leaving with nothing, right? And I would much rather be on the other side of that equation of having the money to go invest in another thing and just keep this thing going, right?
Exactly. I was working with them for a while. They ended up selling, and from a P&L standpoint, if you start firing all of the high level management, your P&L looks much more appealing, right? So they'll look at your EBITDA and go, oh wow, look at all the money you have coming in. And and in the fitness industry, you always have lower level employees that can be given a pep talk to come up and just kind of steer the ship for a little bit while they're kind of negotiating these things. And I was in a position where I was making really good money, and I felt very confident that this company couldn't do what I was doing. And but then they decided to sell, and for, I think it was like $40 million. And just here to tell you, I got none of that $40 million. So that was a sort of an eye-opener moment where I was like, this is not the path. This isn't the path. First of all, millionaires have typically an average of like 5 to 7 streams of income. So I was always well aware that I needed to have multiple sources of income, and not have all my eggs in one basket. But, my primary business was, and still kind of is, real estate. And so, yeah, then Epic Roll, my bottle company, things like that popped up, and now here we are.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that's a really good epiphany to have, of like, oh, the people who owned this and were the owners here, they get to sell this and move on and take something with them as they move on, versus working in an environment like that and then just being like, oh, well, you just got to go find another place to like latch onto.
Exactly.
And why not like build something that then you can be the one who is taking the thing with you after you sell, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I think that's a really good thing to think about when I talk with in the photography world. It's service based business, and a lot of people don't think about business in the same way, that way. And I find that a lot of marketers are this way too, because when I transitioned from photography to marketing, and it's really easy to start up a service based business, but you don't think when people do that at the beginning, they don't think about it from the standpoint of, this is now an asset that I own in this business, and we should build it out as such so that if the opportunity arises for me to sell this, I don't have to just like lose everything and then start again, right? I can take something with me and put it into the next thing. And I just think people just don't think like that in those spaces. So that's why I wanted to draw attention to that.
It's great. It's like, once you dive into that world of entrepreneurism, and it's doesn't come without its issues and pitfalls and failure and everything else. But once you embrace that idea that you can be self-sufficient, that you can create your own money, that you can, and once I made more money for myself than I did working for a corporate company, I was like, okay, you know what I mean? Like, I can do this. And it's just predicated on me committing to not failing, like doing what I have to do to not fail. And if anybody can commit to that idea and concept, then you'll be successful.
Yeah, 100%. Just having the will, like without a doubt, I know that I can figure this out and keep going. Yeah, I love that. So let's talk about Epic Roll, man, because you got the shirt on. I know you're at the headquarters right now. I want to hear about your jiu-jitsu journey, and like I know that I think we're doing 2 jiu-jitsu style episodes here in a row for
Right.
people, but you know what, you guys should start doing it, because you got to get better. So that's what we're doing here. So let's hear about it. I want to hear about your jiu-jitsu journey, but also like how that transitioned into Epic Roll and how this all came to be, man.
Sure. So I got into jiu-jitsu. I started in 2005. So it's been quite a while now. I got into it because I wanted to. It was actually around the time that the Ultimate Fighter was kind of popularizing, and that show was out, and I saw it, and I saw jiu-jitsu through this. I didn't really know exactly what it was, but I know there was a portion of the MMA world that used jiu-jitsu to be pretty dominant, and so it intrigued me, and I thought, well, let me go back and get back into martial arts. I really don't know why, outside of just I knew that I wanted to be able to protect myself. Like, I sort of thought that self-defense as a life skill seemed pretty useful. So it doesn't have to be jiu-jitsu. It could be whatever, somebody wants. But I also recognize that jiu-jitsu had some practicality to it, outside of things like maybe a Krav Maga where I'm practicing pulling your eye out of your head, but I really am not doing it every day, or breaking your arm or something else. Because let's be honest, there's legal consequences that come with that when you're an adult and you get into an altercation. So jiu-jitsu seemed to be like a loophole where I'm going, wow, I could have this, really keen understanding of the body and controlling somebody, but I could do it in a safe manner that, really is probably a better approach. And so I started jiu-jitsu. I for the probably 6 months, I didn't know what the hell was going on. I was just like, I didn't have any friends there. I didn't know anybody. I didn't come from a wrestling background. I did Taekwondo as a kid for a little bit, like every other, kid growing up in America. And then after it was almost 2 years, I decided I wanted to get into MMA and I wanted to fight. And I did it because I really didn't get in many fights growing up, and that 25-year-old in me was like, hey, you should fight and see how it is. And I had a school that was helping run with Kenny Florian's cousin, and so I spent a lot of time hanging out with him and talking to him, and so it just got me kind of jazzed up and wanting to get involved and just see how it was, and not really going to like a bar and getting in a fight with somebody. It was like I wanted to fight somebody who actually was a trained martial artist and see how I fared, you know? So I think I did my first MMA fight the day after I got my blue belt in jiu-jitsu. So fought for about 3-4 years, had a few fights, which was super cool. But then I recognized that like this isn't like a life path. I wasn't trying to be, get into the UFC and like actually fight as a professional. So I ditched the MMA and just stuck with jiu-jitsu. And that was however many years ago that was, almost 20 years. So about 2017, 2018, I kind of go back and I try to figure out exactly when it was, but it was around that time where I was rolling with a buddy of mine who actually is at our school that I'm with now is there, and we were rolling and we came off. We were done training, and I was like, "Oh man, that was an epic roll," and it just sort of came out of my mouth. It was just like that was an epic roll, and I just sat there and I was like, "Oh," because I had a marketing and design background. That was a big part of my background, and so just something kind of just resonated. And I was like, "Oh, that's kind of cool," and went home, started playing around with the like a logo, creating a logo, and around that same time, I had found out about drop shipping. So for people who don't know, drop shipping is where you can basically white label clothing from manufacturers, putting your brand on it and sell it without actually having to hold inventory. And that's a huge thing because, if you try to create a brand and let's say you have 10 different t-shirt ideas or, whatever it is, well, you have to now hold inventory on every size, every color variation. I might have a shirt like this that has 7 different sizes and 8 different color options. Well, I mean, that's so expensive to hold inventory on. So drop shipping came out. It was this cool concept. So I was able to build the Epic Roll brand partially starting just around drop shipping, where I could test the waters. I didn't have to go full in and spend all this stuff. It was more spending my time and my own personal resources with my skills to build that brand and not have to, again, spend a ton of money on holding inventory. So I did that. I started out with t-shirts, and the goal kind of was to make stuff that I wanted to wear. I would go to jiu-jitsu tournaments and I would look online and I would just see corny stuff, I'd see like, I mean, no, I hate always even using examples because I feel like I'm like knocking these companies because we all know who these companies are. But in general, they would have like, knockoff logos that were just jiu-jitsu themed, and that's fine. But those are like, to me, those are like novelty items, right? Those are, and I liked it, but I wanted to create a lifestyle brand, like something that where people could wear the t-shirts and the hoodies and everything outside of jiu-jitsu and it still look cool, and it wasn't like this overly aggressive, like I'm gonna beat your ass kind of a advertising on your shirt, like some brands have very aggressive and type of a vibe to it. So this was very much meant to be middle of the road, appeal to everybody kind of a thing. And as I did it, I started to, get a little traction with friends. Obviously, those are the first people that you always sell anything is your friends. You're like, guys, you should buy this stuff. So I'm slinging stuff to my training partners and everybody's liking it. And then I start getting requests like, hey, do you make rash guards? Or hey, do you make shorts? Or do you make gis? And I was like, well, maybe I should. Maybe we should do that. So slowly just, one rash guard at a time, sort of kind of created these different designs and just grew it very organically. Like that was, the nice part is that this wasn't a thing that I was basing my income on. I wasn't, having to make money from this, so I could really grow it out of just like love and dedication and just passion for what it is that I'm doing. And so I spent, time just doing that, posting that nobody cared about, just well, you make every post, nobody gives a shit. You just kind of keep doing it, repeat it. And then eventually ended up in this incredible place that I honestly can't even believe sometimes to myself, like with just, we're at the still the base of the mountain of what we're trying to grow, right? Because we want Epic Roll to be the biggest and most well-known jiu-jitsu brand on the planet. And we have all the ingredients to do that now. But man, when I started, I mean, that was not at all clear. That was just it wasn't even really a thought in my mind. I couldn't now, with the people that are involved in this company and the support that we have, I'm a big visualization, laws of attraction, type of a guy, but I couldn't have even painted the path to get here like on my own. It just had to happen from getting up every day, putting my head down, and then finally seeing, like, at a certain point, I saw the feedback from the community. I saw the people kind of saying, hey, this is my favorite jiu-jitsu brand. And I'd see people spending money and doing all this stuff. And that really motivated me to keep building the brand and keep going. So now we're at a position where we're not trying to become be a t-shirt company, right? It's not like we want the growth of the company to be predicated on the next design that we do. Now it's about this brand. Now it's about just being able to put this brand on anything and people go, okay, I know what that is. I know what that is, right? When you build a brand in the beginning, it did require me to come up with creative designs. Like, I've done all of the designs that are on Epic Roll, myself personally. And so, all these different designs that we've had, I did personally, and I put out there, and it was amazing. But that was really to get the brand awareness out there, right? Like, I don't think if you were to just put this out in the very beginning, nobody knows who Epic Roll is. It'd be like, all right, well, that's cool. Maybe it's like aesthetically pleasing, maybe whatever. It's jiu-jitsu, but it wouldn't have resonated as much. So once I created these designs that really resonated with people, got the excitement and the hype around it, then it kind of converted over to being, now it's just Epic Roll. So now we still will come out with cool stuff for sure, but we can kind of rely more on, like, now the brand as itself and just that name, as we kind of move forward. So
heck yeah,
so that's kind of where we are.
That's incredible, man. So I want to kind of recap a couple of things you said that really stood out to me, because I think it's important if anyone is starting something new. The biggest thing was, you didn't say these exact words, but it didn't have to work. It didn't have to work. You didn't have to do that in order to put food on the table, right? It was something that you were creating that was almost fun. Like, you just wanted to do this. You saw a hole in the market, and you wanted to put it out there because it was all stuff you were doing, like doing the designs and stuff yourself. Like, it's just something you wanted to do. And then you tested the waters first, right? With the drop shipping, right? So you didn't go out and buy 50,000 t-shirts and then try to offload all that inventory. Like, how stressful is that, right? That's a really smart way to do it. So you started slow and tested the waters, and then grew based on actual demand, like what people were actually asking for. So I think that's a really good 3-step process, right? Make sure that it doesn't have to work. Like, if you're going to start something like that's just going to be for fun and you want to see it grow and maybe it's going to be a thing, make sure it doesn't have to work. And then test the waters and start off slow, and then grow based on what people are actually doing. There was a beer company I heard an interview with a long time ago here in Colorado, and they would talk about how this thing that they said, I'll never forget. They said, we listen to the people who walk through the door, and that's who we make this for. And so you can say, like, we should do more of this beer. We should do more of this beer. No. We listen to the people who walk through the door, the actual customers, because those are the people who are going to buy the stuff, right? So anyway, that's all fantastic. I have a couple questions about that, but you brought up the law of attraction, and you said you couldn't have visualized even where you were, but did you, at the beginning of this, have moments where you intentionally visualized an outcome that this would bring?
I think eventually, when I started to see the impact that it was making on the jiu-jitsu community, I was very fortunate, because one thing that I think is so critical to the success of any entrepreneur or someone who's trying to start a business is networking, right? Like, I made sure that I was really good at networking, because the people that I met, and the people that I now have as friends through this it blows my mind. Like I still look and I'm like tripping out. I'm like, that's my friend. That's wild. Like, and I have these resources and people that I can call and ask questions to about YouTube or influencers, about marketing and posts and all these different things. So that was really huge. But once I saw that this was kind of turning into something, I thought, if you're going to do something, why not assume that you could do it to the best ability? Like, why not assume that you can be the best, you can be the most popular brand? They're just, that was my commitment. Anything that I've done in life, I've had that childlike extreme version of it going on in my head that I just bought into. Everything great in my life that as far as business goes, has been out of belief in myself and an unwavering ability to not quit, because my black belt took so long to get in jiu-jitsu. My fitness bottle company that we're getting ready to launch, years, like almost 2 decades. Everything is taken forever, and it's always a test of your patience and grit and ability to just keep going, because that's where I think people fail. And that's why I think passion behind whatever you're doing is so important, because you're going to have good times and bad times, probably more bad times than good times when you're growing a business, when you're an entrepreneur. So if you don't like what you're doing, and if it's just this thing that is there to try to make money and you're just focused on the money, then it's going to be really hard to get up and deal with all the bullshit every day to get to where you want to be, right? It's just tough. So that's why I was able to sit back and go, okay, real estate, Epic Roll, this bottle, these were components of these things came from who I am as a human being, and like my skill set and the things that get me up in the morning and that I feel fulfilled as a human being when I'm doing. It still makes it really hard. There's still really shitty days and there's still a lot of stuff to get past. But at the end of the day, I go back to just feeling like these were passion projects and things that meant a lot to me. And so I think that really helped me continue to take the path to getting them to where I want to be, and one thing that I might not have had the exact path for Epic Roll outlined, but for my life, I did. Like, for my life, I can tell you from when I wake up to when I go to bed exactly what I want my life to look like. The visualization of what I want to see out my window, the sounds I want to hear, the people I want to be around, like all of that is very dialed in. And I think that's really important, because without knowing where it is that you want to go, it's very hard to just create that path. Like, I've asked friends before, what do you want to do with your life? Like, what would you, if you could just do anything that you wanted, like, what would that look like? And it's surprising how many people still don't know. They don't know. They don't know. No, they don't know how to answer that. So imagine you're in a car and you're trying to drive somewhere, but you have no idea how you're going to get there. You have no map, you have no resources, you're just kind of going. I'm like, reverse engineer it. Start with what you want your life to look like. Look at your skills and what you have to offer, and then find those connecting points, right? Then use that to figure out what you can do. And it takes time, man. Like, I don't know. I sit back and I'm like, if you would have told me maybe when I was in high school that these would be my jobs and my things that I'd be doing, I would have been like, it's crazy, it's crazy. But it's so true to who I am, and it feels so fulfilling to wake up and at least be working towards goals in companies that I am so passionate about and that I love.
Yeah. 100%. I love that. I love that you talked about having an end goal in mind, like just something that you looked at. I mean, I've had sessions where I sit down and I visualize like what it's like to wake up in the morning, how I want how it feels when my feet hit the floor, like walking through, an ideal house or like whatever, stuff like that, like what, and then what I wake up and do every day, how that feels, and getting into the feeling of those things. And, right. Like you were saying, like the things that pop up that I do, it's not necessarily something that I'm choosing them consciously, but that's not what I'm thinking about. Right. And it sounds like for you, it's the thing that's drawn things in, like from the law of attraction standpoint of like, you have this vision for what you want your life to be like and what you want like to feel like. And that's how you want to be living. And so you're living in that feeling, and then things are kind of coming in towards you. And so Epic Roll is one of them, the bottle company. Well, I want to talk about that next and hear more about that. But I think that's what I want people to understand about the law of attraction. It's not about like just wishing everything's going to come true and just kind of sitting here and doing nothing. It's like, no, I'm actively working towards an outcome. And then things come in, maybe sometimes unexpectedly, that are epic, an epic role.
100%, man. It's very hard. Like I really spend a lot of time trying to commit to this whole mindset and way of thinking, because it's so easy in our society to get thrown the other direction, right? Like everything's negative. Things are terrible. News is horrible, right? Like all this negativity that comes at us. And then we get that thing where we're online and we're seeing everybody else's amazing life and all this other, and people driving these expensive cars and taking these trips, and then your just life looks like shit compared to that. And so then people start comparing their lives, which is like horrible and detrimental to your own, mentality. And so you really have to, you can't just think about it. You really, like you said, you have to feel it. Like I every night before I go to bed, I go through, it's actually fun for me. Like I'll get ready to go to bed and I get excited because I get to go to this place in my mind where I'll just sit and I'll walk through everything, waking up and going down to my garage and getting in my Lamborghini and, doing this and that and traveling the world and doing all these things. And it's not because I'm just a materialistic person. It's because that you have very little time on this earth and you might as well make the most of it. And when you start to see that you are more in control of your destiny than you think you are, and you open your mind to that, a lot of possibilities become available, right? It's when we start to assume that we're stuck in this negative loop, or we're a victim of circumstance and we can't get out of this and we can't do that. Everybody's journey is different, but the approach should be the same, and it starts with believing that something is possible, right? And we tell ourselves a lot of lies. And most people probably don't even recognize how much negative self-talk they do on a daily basis, whether it's about their own body or their goals or their lifestyle or whatever it is. And I have found that the one thing that shifted and made the biggest impact on my life more than anything was gratitude. And I didn't understand that concept at first, because I remember hearing it from some really, amazing people that were doing amazing things in their life. But gratitude changed everything completely. And I didn't understand. I was like, what do you mean gratitude changed? Well, try putting yourself in a state of gratitude multiple times through a day. In fact, I have this little like coin. It's, for golf, like when you're putting and you got your little coin that you put by your ball. I keep that in my pocket throughout the day. And anytime my hand goes in my pocket and I feel it, I use that to trigger to myself to just say what I'm grateful for. So I wake up in the morning and before my feet touch the floor, I'm thinking of what I'm grateful for. But I'm not just thinking it arbitrarily. I'm thinking it and I'm feeling it. And it can be whether it's just the health of my family, our opportunities. It doesn't have to be about what everything right now. It's just anything that I want to center my mindset around gratitude about. And that, it's hard to be very grateful and pissed off at the same time. You know what I mean? It's hard to be grateful and bitter at the same time, like truly. So when you let gratitude be the ruling feeling in your body, it will completely change your life, 100%. You know what I mean? You'll start to look at what you have in front of you, the tools and resources you have in front of you, and you're like, awesome, I can do it with this. I can work past this. I can do this. I'm so grateful for this. So gratitude, I think, as much of is a big concept that people should start out with if you're on this path, if you're trying to figure out your life, if you're trying to start something great, if you're trying to work for yourself, whatever. It doesn't even have to be for entrepreneurs. Everybody can benefit from this, but gratitude is a game changer.
Dude, I totally agree. And I think it seems not counterintuitive, but almost like maybe confusing to think about how putting yourself in a state of gratitude could actually bring you more of what you want. But if you think about it, you start thinking about the things that you have that you like in your life, and that just attracts more of those things that you like. I was at an event one time, and Tony Robbins was speaking, and he was on stage for like 4 hours or something at the end of this event. And one of the things he had us do, which is like, everybody's a little bit hesitant, to start participating in the event when you stand up. And I don't know, have you ever been to a Tony Robbins event?
I have seen them on video, but I've never had the chance to be
okay. There's a lot of movement. There's a lot of standing up and stuff, right? So, yeah. But one of the things that he does or did at this event was he had you do this meditation, this active meditation, where you are imagining moments in your life, and you're physically reaching out and grabbing that moment and bringing it back into yourself. And so you reach out and you just keep putting these things, and all of a sudden, after a while, you're overcome with like a real emotion of like, holy crap. And then he comes to a point and says, now this is your real life. Like you just gathered experiences from your real life and things that you are grateful for in your life, and brought them to your awareness. And so and the whole point of that was to say, like, it doesn't matter what all's going on. And obviously there's a lot of terrible things, and people are dealing with really hard things. And I'm not saying making light of that at all, but there are other moments in your life that weren't that way. And so you can actually take yourself into that state anytime you want of like, holy crap, my life is incredible. Even if it's actually, it's being really bad, just by doing this gratitude thing. So I agree with you. I think it's incredibly powerful.
I think people have a hard time with it because it feels disingenuous. It feels like you're lying to yourself, right? Like you're like trying to, but that's the whole point, is you got to get past that superficial block that's right there, like that's the stopping power of what society tells you, and feeling like you can't do this or you can't do that. I mean, the most amazing people have come from the shittiest situations. I mean, just read books, about other people. It wasn't my inspiration came from listening to incredible people who had the craziest, hardest journeys to get there. We only see one aspect of them on TV or on Instagram or whatever it is, and everything looks amazing, not even digesting what they did to get to that point. And so that was really motivating for me, because I saw that you didn't have to go to Harvard and have some crazy education. You didn't have to do this and that. In fact, most people didn't. They were undereducated, comparatively.
Right.
And it was that they had a deep-rooted passion in what they were doing, and they were unwilling to fail. So that became like a fundamental principle for me, is that like, whatever I'm going to do, it's going to happen, but it's not going to happen in my timing, right? The universe is going to decide when these things are going to happen, and it'll be the most perfect situation. And all I'm going to be is dedicated to continuing to pursue it every day. So if I get up and I just do that, I put my head down, I just keep grinding, eventually you're going to lift up your head and look around and go, holy shit, look at what's going on. Look at where I am, look at these people that I'm around. I mean, but it's a commitment, man. It's not easy at all. It's very hard. But I know a lot of people who make good money or make great money, and they're miserable people. They hate their jobs, they hate their stuff. And that to me is sad, because it's so easy to get caught up in bills and all this kind of stuff. And I think people start to get desperate. They start to search for answers, and out of desperation to make money, which is why all these self-help and all these people can make so much money off of offering courses to people, because everybody's lost and everybody's trying to find a path. And some of them are great. Some of them are charlatans and selling snake oil, and some of them are great. But you yourself, have to really break past these social constructs and confines that have been put around us, because the world isn't raising us to be entrepreneurs. They're not raising us to be critical thinkers and independent. We're kind of raised to be cogs in the system, to be worker bees. And so if you want to break that cycle, you really have to break that mindset too, that is so entrenched in many people's heads, and those self-limiting beliefs, And so things like law of attraction and having a, an action or vision board, that's huge. I mean, right here next to me, I have my vision board that gets updated, yearly. And I just checked, I have a watch on here. I just checked off, because I ended up getting that watch. I have things that
Hell
just,
yeah.
you know what I mean? I have things that like I put on here that it's because it's for me, when I'm struggling and when I'm, I look over and I see this stuff and I'm like, that's me. That's who I am. That's what I have
Mm.
to offer as a human. That's my trajectory. And it just is a positive thing that just helps you continue to push forward and move and get going. But if you put a bunch of stuff on a wall that you don't even believe is possible, it just looks cool. Yeah, I want a Lamborghini. Yeah, I want a nice house. Yeah, I want this and that. But you actually don't see any way and any path towards it. You don't, and that doesn't even have to be your thing. It could be whatever it is that you want, right? But those things for me are all contributing factors to what helps me stay in a centered and grateful
Yeah,
mindset.
dude, so good. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I think that's. I mean, it's not. I mean, it is talked about in some circles a lot, but it's not. It's not at the forefront of a lot of, the stuff that you see every day. Most of what you see every day and what's pumped into the algorithm here is like, everything's shit and you should also feel like shit,
Yeah.
and it like whatever, if you're going through some stuff, I totally get that. That's nothing, but like I said, there's an opportunity for you to switch, right? And choose this path over here that's going to make you better versus what's making you worse. It's just like, that's one of the reasons why I keep going to jiu-jitsu, man. It's because like, I know that if I go, even if I'm feeling like shit, that I'm going to feel better on the end of it. Sometimes not so much if I get just totally manhandled or something, which happens more frequently to me than it does you, I'm sure. But it's, without fail, it just makes me feel better, right? So I wake up every day and try to choose things that are going to make me better. So I'm really glad that you shared that. I want to talk about the bottle before we go. So you're on the brink of a new project here,
Yeah,
and it's the one bottle, right? Is what it's called.
it is. It is.
I want to hear about this and how it came to be, because this is another project that obviously brought itself into your world. Tell me more.
Yeah. So when I had my first son, my wife and I got married. She was 24, I was 25. So we've been married this year. It'll be 19 years.
Nice.
So we have two boys, Jet and Tyler. Tyler's the oldest. He just turned 18 on Christmas Day, and when he was born, we were bottle feeding him a lot. So for people that have kids or have gone through a process, if you use baby powder formula, like the powder of it, and you mix it with water, the shelf life of that is like 30 minutes. It'll spoil. You can't just like mix it and leave it on the counter and leave it out. So when you have a newborn or you're going through multiple feedings throughout the day, that doesn't stop in the middle of the night. So we'd be waking up in the middle of the night, and you'd have to have like a jug in the refrigerator of the formula. My wife had a lot of issues breastfeeding. It just like he wasn't latching on very well, and so we ended up bottle feeding a lot. That was sort of the why this sort of started. But we'd be doing this, but then it's 3 a.m. and you're tired and you're like microwaving it and hoping it's not too hot, or you're doing this and the alternative for being out and about was you're carrying around bottles of water, containers of formula, empty bottles. So when your baby's flipping out and they want to be fed, I'm scooping the formula, I'm mixing the water, I'm shaking it up, I'm doing all this stuff. And one day I was doing this, my wife was at home sick, I'm doing this, my son's flipping out, and I'm like that parent that's mortified of creating a situation in public. Like I don't want to be the guy with like the screaming kid, so I'm like freaking out trying to I'm spilling formula on his head. It's just I'm like dad of the year already out of this. So I go home, I'm like, this process sucks, this is terrible, there's got to be something else. So I actually just was looking like for something that would help me not have to carry around all this stuff. Nothing out there. So in my head, I'm like, all right, let me see if I can just design something. I don't even know why. I was like, let me just design something. So I designed this bottle that effectively holds the water on the bottom of a baby bottle, if you imagine a bottle. So the water would be on the bottom, and then the top portion would be where the water goes. And in the center, there was a collar. So you would turn the top and bottom in opposite directions. And internally, you'd have holes that, just like a Parmesan cheese container, would line up once you twisted the bottle, which would allow the formula to move down into the water, and then you'd shake it, mix it, and it's good to go. So I, like, flash forward, I ended up filing for 2 utility patents on how this actually functions. Took like 3.5 years to get the patents. It was a long process. So there's the whole side of that, and dealing with patent attorneys and everything that was crazy, that again, didn't know how to deal with, and it costs a ton of money, is just crazy. And so I started moving through that. I mean, I went through, I don't know how people do this quickly, because for me, again, maybe this is just like my life, like everything takes forever for me to figure it out, and I got to go through like the muck forever before, and then it's like, bingo, here you go. And I always tell myself that that's because the end result's so spectacular that I had to earn it. I had to earn it and go through this process this way. But what we did is reverse engineered it so that it would be a fitness bottle first. The fitness industry is a much easier industry to break into. Babies is very volatile. There's a lot going on there. You have, a lot with regulations, a lot of like household names. So it is possible for sure, but the network and people and everybody, it was easier to go with the fitness. So I basically flipped it. So you have a functional water bottle at the top. You have this click collar, and then you have your protein container, and then a container at the bottom that holds like pills or vitamins or whatever you want. And I, through a very serendipitous situation with a guy that I randomly met one day in Arlington, Virginia, at this like networking event when I was working in health clubs, who ends up living in my town, who ends up being my first like real estate client back in the day, and introduces me to this guy, John, who is my partner for the bottle. And John owns multiple companies, extremely well-off guy, but also a very nice human being, like just a great guy, great family guy. And John said to this is Brendan, my buddy Brendan, one day, like, hey, if you know of any other cool products or anything like that, send them my way. Let me, see. And my buddy Brendan's like, oh, you got to see my buddy Matt's bottle. This has got this cool bottle. So he shows it to him. And long story short, he really likes it and is like, hey, man, I don't, he doesn't need the money like at all. But he's like, I'm at a point in my life where I just want to work with people that I like and with products that I like. He's like, and I like you and I like this bottle, and I think it's a really good idea. So we moved forward, and now we are in the final stages of the final prototypes that are being made. And hopefully with this being available on the shelves this year. But legitimately took, since my son was being bottle fed, he just turned 18. So I want people to understand, like, not only like you invent something. I remember when I invented this, you're immediately kind of like a kook, like, oh, cool, like you invented something. That's adorable. You know what I mean? And now people are like, oh, I would have invested. Can I invest? Can I? It's funny how that works. But I could have and thought I should have quit this so many times, because when I tell you that from shady business partners and poor, like criminals, like patent attorneys, and just money that it costs to go through and try to come up with something in your brain and then actually make it a thing. I mean, the tooling for our bottle that was engineered to only be 7 different pieces was over $200,000 just to get the initial tooling. And then we had to change part of the design, so we had to do additional money towards different tooling. It's an insane process. And all the while with like a shoestring budget, no investors, just kind of like crawling along trying to make it work. And now I'm sitting here with a business partner with endless resources and the ability to take this bottle and make it, the most exciting and newest fitness bottle around. Like, if you see bottles now, blender bottles, things like that, they have little agitators in them. They don't function and do much. And most other bottles that try to accomplish this, they have to take the pieces off. They have to pour stuff in. There's still like a lot of movement. This is like when this launches and you go to buy it versus another bottle, it would be like going and buying a TV that didn't come with a remote. Or do you want the TV that comes with a remote? Like our bottle
Yeah.
does this. It does all the things that you would want it to do. Imagine being on an airplane and your protein shake, your green smoothie is all ready to go in this thing. You're not having to take anything out. You're not having to pour. You're not having to do any of that. It's all done within the bottle, and it's stackable. It's modular. It is a super amazing idea and something is very useful. And I think that I always knew that, and especially with the baby bottle. So once we launch this with the fitness bottle, then we're going to launch the baby bottle.
Awesome.
And so it's a product that I know will help people, that I know will be useful, and that's why I was motivated to keep going. But legitimately, almost 20 years that this has taken as well. So, I'm still sitting here going, I know that this is going to be the biggest, fitness bottle on the planet, but I've had to just keep that in my head this whole time as I barrel through this year after year after year after year, trying to find the right resources. And I think going back to that whole laws of attraction thing is when you do this, when you open yourself to those possibilities, that's when opportunities become available. Because if you're closed-minded and if you're shut down and you're negative, you won't even see those opportunities if they come up and slapped you in the face. So
100%.
you have to be open to those. And that was like, I'm writing a book, and because my end goal of all of these companies and all of these brands is to inspire other entrepreneurs to go out and do what I did, because I look at the people that I was fortunate enough to meet and the books I was able to read and the people who inspired me, and those helped me carry on. So like, I want to do the same thing. I want to tell people these stories and be like, dude, I am some guy in Warrenton, Virginia, which is a town that nobody knows about, and I have a famous rock star business partner for one, a billionaire partner for another company. I have, all these opportunities and all this amazing stuff. And these things, were attracted into my life, like 100%. I mean, I can literally pinpoint these things that have happened. This guy introduced me to this guy to introduce me to this and that. And all of it started from just that, again, mindset of trying to believe that something was possible, something great was possible, and I could do this. And so that has been really the only thing that's just kind of helped me continue to carry on and try to move forward with it.
Dude, I'm excited to see that come to life for the rest of the world. I know it's been alive in your mind for a long time, and I'm excited to see that come to. Are you going to be? How is that launch going to happen? How do you envision that?
So we have some really big companies that actually want to do licensing deals with us. They're like chomping at the bit to get this out. And when you go into manufacturing, you really have to make sure everything's dialed in. And the biggest challenge for us was when you're dealing with watertight seals. Like this bottle, I've stopped many people from getting patents and creating products because I own the intellectual property to how this functions and works. So to figure out another way to make it work would be really tough. This intuitively works how you think it should. And so we are planning on, we'll have it on Amazon, but we'll sell it off of our website first. Mm-hmm. And the beautiful part is that I've got such a huge network through Epic Roll that this is a product that fits right in with that. So I can basically lean on all of my friends, that YouTubers, influencers, actors, celebrities, musicians, that all are like happy to help just promote this and push this stuff and get it out there. And that's what I kind of, my mom would say this. She's like, because I'd get bummed out about it. I'm like, God, this takes forever. Like, why is this taking so long? Like, I just want this damn bottle for sale. Like, what is going on? And she's like, look at the network of people. Like, look at the opportunities. And that wasn't available then. Like, things happen in that universal timing, dude, when they're supposed to happen. And so I've let that sort of help, motivate me to kind of keep me going. So now we have these big companies that want to license it out. So we'll plan on doing, licensing agreements with multiple companies. And then once we've worked out any kinks, it's always good to launch a product. You get your customer reviews. You kind of see, are there things about it that we need to improve and change for version 2.0, especially before we launch the baby bottle. And then it's off to the races, man. And then I'm going to sell this bottle to every single human being on the planet, because I really believe that it's such a useful thing that anybody from a, just person on the go to your average gym goer to, mom, anybody can benefit from. And I think
Yeah.
that's the best thing. It's like, no shame on selling the pet rock and or whatever other little widget things that people come up with, but this is a very useful product that I have spent almost 2 decades trying to bring to the public.
Yeah.
So I'm more excited than I could ever be to launch that and get that out there. And man, I lean on our team to help guide those too, because I have people that are that have built hundreds of $1 million businesses and have been through these processes. And so, that notion of surrounding yourself by the people that you want to be like, like you become the sum of the people you spend the most amount of time with. I spend my time with people that are operating at a higher level of life,
Yeah.
so that I can learn from them, that I can take what they've done and apply it to my own life. And, just like a mentor. It's huge, because I think that's another component that can be very useful to people, is to find some people that you can use to help grow your own knowledge, but you have to do so with a mindset of giving. Like, you can't go into it and be like, me, and help me. It's like, no, if you have to go and get that dude coffee every day, or sit there and answer his phone, or do whatever you have to do to put yourself and position yourself with successful people that are going to help you along the way. And when you do it from a place of giving, you will receive more.
Yeah.
Always.
Dude, something that I hope you guys are paying attention to this, because something that has been a through line of this entire conversation is connecting with people and networking and building your network. And have you ever read the book Who Not How by Benjamin Hardy, I think it is?
I don't know if I have.
Well, but the concept is pretty straightforward. It's like, if I sit here and think, how can I launch this bottle into the world? How can I do it? How can I do it? It's like you're limiting yourself to your current skill set, your current resources, all this stuff, and you're putting yourself in this box, versus saying, who can I find who has exactly what I need and who might be interested in this? And it doesn't mean that you're going to go out and try to snipe people, right, with your idea. It's more of like, who can I connect with, and who can I build a relationship with, and how is that relationship going to help over time? And it may not be the right connection, but like, it's cool. Like, you go make a connection, you have a genuine connection with people, and then now that's one person. And then maybe that person, is following along with your stuff, and on down the road, they say, hey, you got to meet my friend so-and-so. He's going to be super into this. And now all of a sudden, you're not trying to figure out how to do it, because somebody has almost swooped in to say, hey, I can help you do this thing. That's the whole concept. I mean, it's the concept of networking, but if you're limiting yourself to only what you can do, then you're going to be stuck, because those skills are going to have to develop over time, where somebody else has already been there. Does that make sense?
100%. It's the reason I was mentioning the book I'm writing is because one of the chapters is called King. My buddy's name is Brendan King, and that guy is just, again, one of those examples. Like, he's the reason that I met John for the bottle, and John is the reason that I met Zoltan. And Zoltan and Heather Gracie became my partner in Epic Roll. It doesn't even make sense to me. I went to a show, a Death Punch show, before COVID. John hooked it up, so my wife and I went up to Pennsylvania. We were side stage, so brought us up on stage. It was this whole cool thing. I knew he was a Jiu Jitsu guy, so I had given him Epic Roll gear, and he was wearing it. And we left that concert, and I was like, I looked at my wife, I was like, man, so is so cool. Like, what an awesome guy. Wouldn't that be cool if he was my business partner for Epic Roll? And we just laughed about it. We just like jokingly laughed about it. And I told him, like, years later, I told him that story. And he's like, look, bro, because he's very much same thing, visualization, laws of attraction. He's like, you put that out into the universe, and look what happened. Like 3 years later, he's my business partner. Doesn't even make sense to me, bro. Does not even make sense to me. Like that guy and Heather Gracie are now my business partners for this brand that I created. I mean, it's the wildest thing. But had I not met Brendan, had I not been open to these concepts and these ideas, like who knows what would have transpired, and that's why I just try to trust the universe. I try to trust in, that the notion that if you work hard, if you're true to yourself, it's an undeniable fact that you will reach your goal. It'll just happen. It will 100% happen because you don't let it not happen, right? And the only thing that prevents things from happening is you quitting. So if you don't quit and if you keep working hard, you will achieve your goals. And that's just a tough pill for a lot of people to swallow, because society tells us very different. They tell us very different story. And this, I can look back on my life at many situations to validate that, and times where all I had was my hope and my own, thoughts that this will work itself out, this will be successful, this will happen. That was it. When the whole world is telling me no and everything around me is telling me no, the only thing I had was my mind. So I try to protect my mindset every day, and that's why I don't consume watching the news and certain things, because it's just, I don't want all that bullshit in my head, to be honest with you. I want to keep it positive. I want to, it's not to be to say that I don't, you don't have bad days and you can't embrace reality. It's just to say that, like, I work really hard to stay in a positive mindset that's centered around gratitude, because that's what has the biggest impact tangibly, like, on my life.
Yeah, 100%, man. Yeah, how are you supposed to wake up every day, right? Like, just like you said earlier on at the beginning, and deal with the bullshit of whatever you have to do if you're not grateful that you are building something and the vision? Like, it all ties together, right? I heard somebody mention, I think it was maybe Brendan Burchard or somebody, he was talking about how he's like, I don't get frustrated, and I'm not surprised when I wake up on Monday morning and I have a shit ton of emails I got to answer. It's like, cool. It doesn't bother me. I don't mind to do that, because you know why? That's part of the gig. I'm a business owner. I'm going to have a lot of work to do during, it's just the way it is. So, man, this has been fantastic. I always like to ask people why, and we kind of touched on this a lot, I feel like, but I'm curious what you would ask, how you would answer directly. Why is this important to you?
I have been blessed with the opportunity to accomplish some amazing things, in my opinion, in life. And, like my parents' generation, my dad, there was like 8 things you could do, when you were his age, when you were growing up in that time. It was just, the internet wasn't there. It just wasn't, it was a whole different thing, nobody was making millions of dollars unboxing toys online. And so, so I grew up like without the internet, but young enough that I can still utilize, these technologies and these things. So I have these amazing opportunities, and I look at that as a responsibility, because I want to have an impact on the world in like a positive way, and I want to have an impact on society. So when I think about, you have to achieve a certain level of success to get the forum, to get people to really listen, right? Like, most people, if you're not doing better than them financially or whatever it is, it's be hard to get people's attention. So I want to create generational wealth for my family, to take care of them, so that they can, they can pursue the things that they want to do as well, without being sucked into, having to do what they need to do to survive, instead of being given an opportunity to thrive. And I do them because I want to make an impact on society, and I want to do that through my struggles and through my brands and through my companies, so that I can look back and just, that to me, it's like, you can do whatever for yourself, but if your goal is centered around a bigger focus and picture, that becomes so much more of an important mission statement and cause, right? So like, when I'm getting up, it sounds corny, but I'm not like doing this just for me. I'm doing it for all the messages from all the amazing people that have said, this is my favorite jiu-jitsu brand, or, oh, I can't wait to have that bottle, or, your story inspired me. Like, those are the people that I want to do this for, because it feels like an obligation, like an obligation that I want to accept and take on, because I know that I've been given the opportunity to do so. And I know that some people, are born into very situations where they are at a severe disadvantage. People that lost the use of their legs, or are blind, or they can't, they have severe disadvantages and they're still out there doing things. I'm like a healthy, normal dude, and I'm like, I will not squander that opportunity. I will take advantage of it and just keep pushing to again, hopefully make a bigger impact on society.
Yeah, man, I love that. I love that so much. Matt, this has been awesome, dude. I want to make sure people connect with you. I want to make sure that people can find your different brands online. How do you want people to find you?
Yeah, so you can, if you're in the DC, Virginia, Maryland area and you're looking for real estate, MJ Home Sales is our real estate team. So please look us up. And on Instagram, most of social media, Epic Roll BJJ. And our bottle company is the One Bottle. We have a Instagram page, but it's kind of dormant right now because I'm kind of waiting till we launch everything to go ham on that. But please go on and follow and support and connect. And if anybody heard this and it helped inspire them, or they have any follow-up questions, I try to make myself as available as possible to help anybody I can.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Matt. I appreciate it, man. Have a good rest of the day, brother.
Thank you, brother. You too.